Good evening, all you wicked internet heads. You're probably in need of salvation, and that is why I am here. I'm here to educate you about the brand new Warrior Nun, which landed a couple of weeks back on Netflix. Is it good? Is it bad? I'll let you know right now, once I've got through a bottle of wine. So a short while ago, my really great friend Trevor sent me a message saying, Nick, have a look at the trailer. And I was like, come on, dude, are you trolling me, you son of a gun? No, he wasn't trolling me. I had a look at the trailer and I thought to myself, this looks good, but it does look like it's naff, if you know what I mean. It looked like a cheap 70s show, and I thought to myself, my God, this is not going to be good. This is going to be bad, but hopefully it'll be so bad that it's actually good. So what's it about? Well, Warrior Nun is based on the comics by Ben Dunn. Obviously a character or a person who has a lot of dreams about demons and has fetishes about nuns in black with pointy, sharp things, and all I can say is, thank you very much, man. I have thought about this season very, very much since I finished watching it, usually in the shower, but it is a good show. It is well done, and even though the name sounds a bit dumb, it is worth watching. But then again, these days, comic books kind of all sound dumb, don't they, really? I mean, Batman, Superman, all that stuff sounds dumb, but it can be quite good. This is good. So originally, Warrior Nun was actually going to be a movie until Netflix decided, we want that! And they grabbed it and they turned it into a 10-part series, which is really great because there's a lot of content in this. I'm not quite sure how they would have covered that in a sort of 2-hour movie or even 2.5 hours, and I'm glad that they made this into a series. It's definitely a formula that you could watch, and because of the content, it's very easy to make it into episodic sort of content. Again, looking at the brand new treatment of Cursed, which is on the flip side of this, yes, Netflix can do things pretty well. And then they can also do things pretty badly. Hot garbage. So, the show stars a rather lovely Elva Baptista, who plays Ava Silver, who's a quadriplegic who dies. Anyway, she turns into this demon-kicking hero with an absolute load of sass and a rather nice penchant for puns. That's right. She has a massive penchant for puns, and this is some really bad puns. Really, really bad puns from dead ends while they're in crypts to... Yeah, anyway.
I'm sorry, can we maybe jump to the part where any of this has anything to do with me?
So what happens in the beginning? Well, she kind of gets a new lease on life, literally, when she is brought back from the dead by a desperate nun who puts this weird-looking object into her back. We're not quite sure what this is, and what ensues is a journey of self-discovery, friendship, and love. Yeah, it sounds very cliched when you put it that way, but it actually works bloody well. Much like Buffy did a lot of these things, like I say, this show is not a particularly brand new thing that you're going to be watching. It is derivative of a lot of other things out there, but it does it well. And that's where this show shines so much. It is the friendships and it is the relationships that make it something to come back to. So Ava is brought back literally from the dead, as I mentioned, and she's kind of forced to enter this weird Catholic order or covenant called the Order of the Cruciform Sword, which just rolls off the tongue. That's why I have to read this. I always forget the bloody name. And basically, this is a Catholic department or a Catholic secret organization that kicks the shit out of demons and stuff like that. And it doesn't, like I say, it is nothing new. It really is nothing new. But it is a lot of fun to watch. It's good because the characters make the show work. And she does kick the shit out of demons. And when I say shit, get used to the word, because they use it a lot in here. Unlike a lot of other young adult movies or series, this doesn't patronize the viewer. Yes, it uses swear words, etc., etc., which is usually a 16 or something like that. I'm not quite sure what that would be in Netflix. But this is a pretty well-balanced young adult show. I'm going to say young adult instead of millennial or Gen Z, whatever the hell it is these days. As I mentioned, because it doesn't patronize its viewers. It uses very, very, adult language. A couple of fuck bombs are dropped every now and again. Doesn't go as far as using the C word, other than Catholic, which is probably worse than the other C word. But it deals with the language use because that's what people speak like. You won't get many of the nuns actually saying that, except for a couple of them. Well, one or two. I think it's one, actually. Ava is not a nun. She is actually literally a non-believer, as a matter of fact, which is why she can't believe what the hell's going on around her. So, the show certainly looks at adult themes and Catholic themes, in fact. There are a couple of moments where you're like, wow, they actually covered that. Like, for example, she grew up in an orphanage, and as I mentioned, she was quadriplegic. So for 18 years of her life, she's grown, or literally bedridden and looked after by a nun. And you look at the abuse that takes place in these orphanages, and a show like this, could have easily done it in bad taste, but they don't. They actually deal with it in a very, as I mentioned, respectful and not a patronizing way. And that's where I was quite shocked with this. Even though they're swearing and they are demons, they do look at the abuse of power, they do look at the corruption, etc. in the Catholic Church. One thing they don't go as far as doing, though, is dealing with the sordid underbelly of pedophilia, which I'm kind of glad they didn't, because that is something that should be left to lawyers and things like that. So they don't go that far. But they certainly do look at people, abusing younger people in the sense that they mistreat them, And yeah, like I mentioned, it's done in a very, very adult and respectful way. Now, the structure is pretty formulaic. You've got somebody who suddenly gets these powers, much like Buffy, has to learn from somebody like Buffy, and then more than likely is going to master them and kick the shit out of demons. Yes! And that's fine. I have absolutely no problem with it. If you do it well, it can be great. It really can. If you don't do it well, another life cursed. It's shit and hot garbage, so I'm not going to bother even watching those. So in this, we've got Ava, as I mentioned, played really well, and the actress is actually Portuguese. This is her first English role, and with a couple of the actresses and actors, they are also in this as a first time. I forget the one actress, but this is her first gig ever. Like, she hasn't been in any other shows. This is the first live show. So some of them, some of them are definitely wet behind the ears when it comes to this. You can see the confidence is not all there. But as it gets sort of towards the end of the seasons, you can see certain bright moments where they are starting to get pretty good. So as I mentioned, we've got Ava, who's played by Alba Batista. We then have quite a few other people. We have Mary, who is pretty cool. So Sister Mary is basically like the shotgun Mary to the face. Badass. Almost excommunicated nun. She is a nun, but she's given a lot of leeway to do what she wants to do, to get the job done. She likes shotguns a lot, as I mentioned earlier, and she's pretty cool. I really, really liked her. She starts off a bit annoying, as my friend Wayne said. Wayne said to me that she was a little annoying at first, and I agree with him completely. And Wayne, thank you so much, buddy. Love you. But by episode 3, the banter between her and Ava really gets great, and she kind of turns into the mentor that Ava needs. And yeah, the banter between them is absolutely brilliant. There's a couple of episodes actually where Sister Mary literally brings her to like this one city or one village, that once was in control of demons, and it shows what the Catholic Church can do on the good side of things. So that was quite nice to actually see that. And there's this obvious turmoil between Ava and the direction that she has. She can either become this warrior nun, or she can go back to the world that she doesn't really want to go back to that world because she was bloody bedridden for her entire life, but you know what I mean. She wants to go back into like a normal lifestyle. So yes, we got Ava, we got Sister Mary, we got Lilith as well, who again, she's actually kind of annoying too. And the name, as it suggests, it just kind of gives her a entire plot away, to be honest with you. We all know what happened with Lilith, but she actually comes into her own a little bit later on, and she's quite delightful to watch. Also, kick ass. Then we've got Father Vince, who's played by Tristan Ola. And that's kind of funny because the entire show is about empowerment and warrior nuns. But then you have this father who basically runs them. He's kind of in charge of that order. And he's not bad. He's pretty cool too. Really important plot points from him. And he also has quite a sordid history. Again, going back to the strength in the show, is that each character is... Almost all the characters. Some of them are not so much. Like Lilith, for example. No, that's a lie. Lilith does have a massive background. There's one or two other characters, I can't even remember their names, who don't, but are quite prevalent. So yes, like all the characters in this have brilliant backstories, and that's why I think the show works so particularly well. We then have Camilla, who's a pretty cool character, and... yeah, she is, again, a kick-ass character. It takes a while for them, a lot of these characters, to get going, because Ava is the main central theme, or character, at the very beginning. And, yeah, it works very well. All the nuns, loads of fun. We have one nun, I think that's sort of lesbian, I think, actually. Pretty sure she is. Another one is like a demolitions expert. Another one is a sort of kung fu kind of expert. One's a shotgun expert. So yeah, there's a whole range of different nuns for every day of the week. Outside of the nuns killing demon stories and business, we have the love interest. Yes, sadly, they do go down that road. It's one of the negatives I actually have on the show. Ava has a love interest. Oh, yeah. His name's JC, which is a little bit on the nose for me. He saves her in the first episode, I think, or second episode, from drowning. His character JC basically moves from home to home in Portugal or Spain. I think it might be Spain actually, where it's set. And he lives in very famous people's houses or rich people's homes while they're away. So he's kind of like a sitter. You know, he makes use of all the people's cars. He lives their life, and then he moves on to the next house. He has his own little posse of petty criminals with him, and yeah, I mean they're not there particularly long, but he is there, and he is kind of. I think the point of him is to play the anchor to the normal life that Ava could have, which doesn't really work for me, to be completely honest. The JC Jesus Christ Savior thing is bullshit, especially when you look at the nuns and how they kick ass. They could kick the shit out of him. But also the fact that he's supposed to represent this sort of like tether to normality when his life isn't normal, when he's literally a con man moving from one expensive house to another expensive house, and then, you know, making literally pretending to be other people, almost like a talented Mr. Ripley kind of thing. That's not a really normal world. The love between them, it's not really love. I think it is, yeah, it wasn't dealt with badly. It wasn't dealt with particularly well. It's just there. I can understand the need for it. There is a sex scene, which was quite awkward to watch, to be honest with you, because you're bearing in mind that she's a virgin. She's been bedridden because she's a quadriplegic, and then suddenly she knows this guy, and they end up shagging in like a closet. Not tastefully done, but I suppose these days maybe I'm the old school guy who knows nothing about it. Then, in this entire sort of, you know, nuns and demons, we have a scientist who's played by Thelke Rutte. I think she's a Dutch actress. She plays Julian Salvius, whose son is dying, and she's found some material that belongs to the Catholic Church. She's uncovered it, and this particular metal has unusual properties. She's using this to actually create a portal, and we're not quite sure where to. It could be hell, could be heaven. It's got to do with whole photons and science, gobbledygook sort of words over here. And, oh yes, it's called divinium, that's the name of the metal, much like unobtainium, I suppose, in Avatar. And that's quite an interesting intersection we have, because we got the entire timeline with the demons, and then you're throwing this whole science element into it. And I really like the way that they dealt with that, because you don't see it very often. You always have this sort of, just the whole full-on fantasy, but you don't very often have the full-on fantasy, and then sidelined along with it is this kind of science element where, you know, wormholes are a thing, but the priests are sitting there going, good God, dudes, no, don't do this. And the scientists are like, no, but you're just trying to hold back science, which they are, but there's a pretty fucking good reason why they're trying to hold back the science. So yes, moving on from that, what else do we have? Yeah, I mean, I did expect this to be a pretty cheap show, to be shallow and whatnot, but it really isn't. A lot of the characters you can see enjoyed their roles. Francisco Giretti plays this bastard, this absolute arsehole cardinal who basically has plans on becoming the next pope. What's it? Joaquim Almeida, that's right. And you could see he relished the role. You can absolutely see he had fun with it, because the character's written so well that he's a good guy on the surface, but he's not a good guy, and everyone knows it, including most of the nuns, to be completely honest with you. The directing is pretty solid in this. The soundtrack's quite nice. I was quite impressed with that. I was expecting a lot of hip-hop music, and after watching that whole Old Guard, the music that they have for the fight scenes, and this is very good. Fight scenes are also very competently put together. Great choreography in this. And yeah, nothing really pulls you out of the immersion. Not completely out of the immersion. That's not to say that there is no bad side to this. One of the bad things in this is the CGI. They have a demon that pops in and out because he's trying to find this halo, and the way he jumps in is pretty cool. It's almost like a portal, but he looks like a character that was picked out of World of Warcraft. He's very shiny, if you know what I mean, like CGI that's shiny, and that doesn't work particularly well in this, not when everything else looks great around it. So yeah, there's one or two shots where you see the full-on sort of realized demon, and that didn't look really great. Most of the other CGI was pretty good. I mean, the portals that the scientists are working on and stuff like that, pretty good too. And then just touching back on what I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of actors in this where this is their first rodeo, and you can see it's their first rodeo. I'm still very surprised by Baptista, because she, as I said, she is a Portuguese actress, and this is her first English gig, and she did a bloody good job. Really, really held the entire thing together. She has this kind of like, as I mentioned, this almost Sarah Michelle Gellar personality or quirk, where she's sort of like rolling her eyes and stuff and doing things while people are talking, and that it's cute and it works so well, Because you can see she's reveling in the fact that she's now got legs, literally, and she can do a lot more than she used to be able to do. Like, get hit by cars and shit like that and not die. So yeah, that works really, really well in this. The story, again, is put together nicely. The plot is put together nicely. There are a few issues with some plot points and narrative, and in particular dialogue. There's a couple of scenes where they're like, you can't do this, we can't do this, and then the next moment they can do it. Again, that was something I mentioned in The Old Guard, and I think it might just be maybe too many people interfering with the plot, I'm not sure, but that irked me a little bit in this, because it stood out a lot. Because everything else was pretty damn competently done, the one or two things that when I stumbled stood out a little bit more than maybe it should have. But yeah, other than that, I love the show. I binge watched the hell out of it in 2 days. It was refreshing to not have to watch some hero guy wielding a sword running around. Instead, we have a foreign person who plays an English person who is a girl or woman, 18-year-old. And yeah, it was just fun. It was nothing new, as I've mentioned, but it is definitely worth a watch. And I'm really, really hoping that they'll give it a season 2. If they can give Another Life a season 2, they can sure as shit give this one a season 2. So for me and my brand new marking ratings, I would give this a cheddar melt steak out of 10. Cheers. Cheddar melt steak? Fuck yeah, I need one of those now.